exists, but can't be seen. It is the united hope of the future. Let's celebrate unity and connection. This is Ultraviolet DXB. This is Ultraviolet. Let's celebrate unity and connection. This is Ultraviolet DXB. Ultraviolet DXB. This is Ultraviolet.
Hey, sorry I'm late. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So welcome to Ultraviolet DXB. We're super excited to have Giuseppe here. Giuseppe is an artist and an art producer living in Sharjah. So you've produced about 50 major local and international exhibitions and about like 150 different educational programs. You're very involved in the community's activities. And now you're working on, since 2019, Evolve.
Thank you, Noor, and thank you for inviting me to this conference at Ultraviolet. It's very exciting. Yeah, it's been like almost 14 years now that I'm before Sharjah, and then for 10 years, and then I moved to Abu Dhabi, and then now I'm based in Dubai. So yeah, I started as an artist. I studied at the Accademia di Belle Arti in Rome. I'm an artist myself, so I kind of navigate the world of being an artist and being a producer. So I kind of understand what are the language, what are the challenges, and what are the issues that artists face all the time. So I'm kind of between these two worlds, these two parallel worlds.
The link, the connector.
Facilitator, they call it. So yeah, I studied art. I practiced art a lot before, and then much less when I start to work. When I start to run an organization in Sharjah. So to go back to 2010, I start to I co-found Maraya Art Center, which was still active now, an art center in Sharjah that promotes emerging artists from the region and the Gulf, with a special focus to the emerging scene, basically. And then I was proudly part of the foundation of 1971 as well, which is a design space also based in Sharjah on the Flag Island, also focus on nurturing designers from the region. And in the meantime, in a parallel level, in a parallel world, I was also exhibiting my work. So I was exhibiting in Europe, in the UAE. I was exhibiting also at the Sharjah Biennale in 2009. I participated in exhibition in Cyprus, in Tunis, so quite in Alexandria, in Egypt as well.
Amazing, yeah.
So I was like experiencing these two careers.
You to this region from Rome?
I came here for because I really like the region, and then I really like the culture, and then I want to discover more. So I tried this experience, and then I want to understand also the culture. I want to understand what was happening here. It was an interesting time, 2007. It was also prior crisis, so there were a lot of interesting projects happening, a lot of ideas, and a lot of people from different parts of the world coming together. So it was an interesting experience.
A little bit about like what was it that drew you to art? Like when did you adopt your love and passion for art?
And when I was at the high school was an important part, because I was studying art also in high school. I was in the design and architecture. It was more kind of like on the architecture side, but then I decided to explore the visual arts. And then I did like an extra curricular course, and then I decided to study art at the Accademia di Belle Arti, which is the University of Art in Rome. And then from there, it's like piece by piece. Like I've been always a creative person. My father is a photographer. My mother is an artist as well. So we've always been involved in the art world.
Tell me about some of your, your biggest influences, kind of, and why.
Yeah. So coming back to my study in Rome, I studied university painting and history of art at the Accademia di Belle Arti. So during that time, my professor was Cecilia Casarati. Was a very, played an important role, because I discovered so many artists through her: Cindy Sherman, Christian Boltanski, who I end up interviewing for my thesis, and then Fabio Mauri. So all names that resonate and like very importantly in my background. So I end up also working for 2 years for Fabio Mauri. So Fabio Mauri was another important key role player in my history, because he was one of those artists that use philosophy and reference from historical reference, and then he very intellectual, very deep in thoughts. And like working for him was very, very important. He's that kind of artist who's not driven by materials and visuals, but more concept theories and abstract, right? So
right.
I was kind of working. He was quite old. He now passed away in 2010. But I was supporting his production, because he was that kind of artist who had a brilliant idea but don't know how to, materialize it. Here. So I was working the production as well, and that was an important experience. And then I think another when I moved here, meeting Sultan Al-Qassimi was also a very important point, because Sultan is a researcher, he's a writer, and then he is a collector. So process that led him to create the Bargil Art Foundation.
And one of the leaders kind of in the arts, being active in the arts community here, it was kind of like a quick way to connect with the scene and what's happening here.
Yeah. Yes, and he's still one of my reference on not only in the region but internationally. His experience, his way of thinking is always forward-thinking, progressive. So I really like. I mean, spending half an hour with Sultan is like spend regular people. So
Amazing. Yeah. So it's that's amazing. Okay, and tell me now, like currently, let's talk about the work that you're doing currently. Are you still, I mean, I know that you're doing Evolve Art and you have a few other projects under that umbrella. Are you still producing your own art at the moment?
Yes, I produce art. I still do. Let's say I'm mostly on a research phase, especially during this lockdown. I've been reading a lot. I've been reading. And I have the luxury to go to read a book and go back to the reference of the book, which was like almost impossible before with the busy time, So
yeah.
I have the time now to do a lot of research and to talk to people, to talk to old friends that work in university professors, so to exchange ideas, and more on a let's say academic perspective. Production-wise, I'm not physically producing anything. I'm more like as I said, research. So I'm more like creating visuals through Photoshop, through like graphics, because I'm very much interested into geopolitics and as an artist, I mean, geopolitics and maps, geographical maps. So that's my interest.
Cool.
That's an artistic point.
Tell me about Evolve.
So Evolve is basically the need that I have to be independent. When I stopped working for government, I decided that I want to start my own consultancy. So I'll be working independently with more freedom, and at the same time to be also more flexible with the project. So I started Evolve, and then on specific production for exhibitions, and then I have to say that it was quite good that as a start I start to work with the UAE Unlimited, for example, is a private initiative of Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan, and then I start to work for EMAR for a new art initiative that is going to be launched by the end of the year. And then I was also appointed as a curator of SICA 2020, which is now 2021, and then that's how we.
That's where we met. Yeah.
And that's are the three major things that I'm working on, and then starting to work also with Ajman government, which is quite interesting because Ajman is expanding into art commissions and public art projects. So I'm quite involved with them in terms of.
That's amazing. Actually, I think we can both agree that I mean, I've been here for 8 years, and I think it was pretty rare to see public art installations up until recently. So specifically here, that's something really that I missed about being in Europe and then versus being here in the Middle East or in this region. So, let's talk a little bit about how that came about, because you've been here for a while. So I'm sure that you've seen that type of progression, and I'm sure that you have also been a part of that, but tell us a little bit about the scene of public art installations.
I think I experienced like a good part of the evolution. I mean, of course, not a lot, but there are people, artists, that experience much more. But I have to say, from 2005, which is the first time that I came here, when I saw for the first time the Sharjah Biennale, and then in 2007 when I moved for good here, I started to see more and more. And in 2008, from 2008 until 2010, there was this kind of trend and need from especially from the local institutions to support emerging talents from the UAE, and slowly it became UAE based. So I experienced this evolution of supporting strictly Emirati talents to the support of UAE-based talent. So that was, I think, an important turning point. That like a good statement that's how visionary is this country on these regards, you know, on giving also this to UAE based, not only Emirati. So that was an interesting part, and I was part of these also because with Maraya we were sending artists for residencies, we were supporting artistic production. So we experienced, like, I mean, I experienced that first, let's say, that generation of artists that came through like between 2009 to 2013, and then to 2014, 16, another wave, another generation, and now I think there are new generation coming up. I mean, with Sika being reviewing portfolios of new artists that I've never heard about, and they're very interesting. They are quite interesting projects. They have different perspective. They are from, you know, they are not some of them are millennials, some of them are the Z generation. So they have a completely different approach from the artists that I used to know 10 years ago.
And tell me, who would you think that are like the is it the property developers, or is it something that came about from like the government, you know, and property developers to start creating these public or commissioning public art installations?
It depends. I work for example, in Sharjah, it was an entity that was semi-government, and in Ajman it's full government. In Abu Dhabi also was government. I was working for the government, for the Department of Culture and Tourism. Nice. And so, and now with this project with Demar is a property developer. So I think it's evolving now. We can see that art is not only supported by the government, by the authorities, but it's also supported by the private companies.
Amazing. That means there's progress, right? And more space and opportunities for artists.
Yeah,
that's cool. So okay, and so now currently Evolve has got some other projects as well under the umbrella. Is that right?
Yeah. So there is an idea that I came up with. I mean, it was something that I was thinking since almost a year, but because of the lockdown, we were forced to do things more in a creative way. So I decided to start this adventure of Nation 2.0. So again, it's I don't know, directly or indirectly, is always somehow related to the geography. So I always like to look at maps and look at territories, and I'm always fascinated about that. So I always thought that we live in this modern world where we are connected. So we are part of this evolution of a state. So we are connected online. So we live in different countries, but we are all connected. And if we are like-minded people, no matter how far we are, but we are part of the same country, right? So I decided to call it 2.0, which is not the typical art name, because everybody was saying, why didn't call it art space online, or why at least you call it Art Nation? But I didn't like the idea to be like super clear, you know, super transparent.
It's about bringing people together as well, and not necessarily only about the art. Is that what you mean? Okay.
Yeah, in a way, and also because I don't like the typical name, the stereotype name that has to be necessarily related to art, right? Yeah. So I like to leave a little bit of imagination also on the project. That
some space, some healthy space to fill.
So Nation 2.0 is an artist-run project. It's a fully operative online. Now it's live with an Instagram account, and basically what I do, I identify artists that are not represented by galleries or they're not represented by institutions, and I feature their work with the idea of promoting them not only not only locally but also globally, because we are connecting with the structure of Nation 2.0 is to connect with individuals, collectives, and institutions from different parts of the world. Luckily, I was lucky enough during these years to connect with many people from different parts of the world. So that was, I think the strength of the project. So artists that are not represented, they don't have enough visibility maybe, and that they, of course, that they have a good body of work. I will feature their work on Instagram account, and then on the second phase, we're gonna focus on showing their work on the website. The website is a completely new format. Completely different parameters than the typical website. So we're not necessarily showing their work in a classic way. We are commissioning them to create a a specific project for the web. So it's kind of creating a new media. It's like creating a new media where the artists are commissioned to use the media that they have on the web to deliver their message. So to make it more tangible, for example, an artist is using his existing visuals, and then the web developers is adapting these visuals in a structural design that is agreed between me, who I'm the commissioner, the artist, and the web designer. So
it's a whole new breed of showcasing, basically. You're
yes.
it's a completely different approach to showcasing and exhibiting work with this media interface as
Yes.
the predetermined outlet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome.
And the media are they're nothing like super new, but they are like photo, videos, audio files. One of the artists is using virtual reality, but I'm avoiding as much as possible the virtual tools, the typical virtual tools, which is it's a completely different idea of what I'm working on. So I'm not showcasing an existing exhibition on the virtual tool,
the internet. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
more of, it's a new progressive art medium, which is what you categorize it as.
Yes.
And it can be a hybrid of different art mediums together, but focused for web.
Yes. Yeah.
So that brings me to my next question: the experiential factors that are really important for you to like deliver this experience for the viewer.
Yeah, first of all, I always start with the idea, with the concept. So if there is a message to deliver, if there is an idea to be expressed, this is always the initial part, the idea. Then we have all the type of media to deliver that message. So you can use all the media, all the different message. Technique, but mainly the fact that you have the flexibility to use different media on a platform that is accessible real time from everywhere, from everyone around the world. That's already a big achievement. And another thing that I'm focusing on is the fact that the project has to be prioritized to smartphones. So we are kind of tailoring the whole experience on a smartphone, because initially was okay. We have to deliver a project that goes on the computer, but then I realized that I want an immediate, effective, impact of the project. So many people will consume the artistic production through smartphone. So we are designing everything according to the smartphone. That doesn't mean that the project cannot be in future produced in a physical space. So we are working on that in that direction also. We are working on the parameters and details of the content developed that later on in a second phase could be, for example, produced for an exhibition in an art fair or in an art gallery. It can be printed, for example, or it can be a video that is installed in a physical space. because I still believe that that the importance of the physical presence in exhibition space. So visiting exhibition space, visiting museums is always it should not change. It will not change in future. I mean, during the post-pandemic, I think we will come back to what we used to do before, in a different way, with different approach, knowing and understanding that we have technologies that will allow us now to do things differently, but we will go back, let's say, to the old experience, which is the physical and then the immersive experience. This is very important.
There will be probably lots of challenges in trying to offer the same experience in real life on a phone, on a smartphone. So good luck to you. But I mean, what is the biggest one that you're facing right now that you're like, you know, trying to nail?
We are working with 3 artists, and all of them 3 have different requirements and different expectations. And luckily, they are easy to work with. So that was my priority. There are different challenges. Mostly are technical challenges. I mean, understanding how to adapt their idea on this new platform, and some of them they still didn't figure out how to adapt all of their ideas into this platform, because they used to think always, okay, I have an idea. I use photography as a medium, so I will work on photography. I will create the Photoshop. I'll go to the printer. I'll print 10 editions. End of story.
It's been done.
Here it's like, okay, we have to show it on a digital platform. Okay, but how interactive is this project? It is interactive. What do you mean interactive? I have to click here, right, left. How? Basically, the experience is how you are interactive with the project on the device, because the interaction is not necessarily the virtual tool reaction, the interaction, but it's more like, it could be like a series of slides, or clicking and exploring, for example, like the images through a journey. Or for example, there is a project, there's an artist working with the map, where you see the world map, and you click in different cities around the world, where you enter and you see the place that you have visited before, history, with, you know, with historical reference. So there are different ways, but I would say mostly is they are all super fascinated, super excited to work on this project. But the things become a bit slow when they have to come up with the final result, because
you're reinventing basically.
Yes, and the other challenge is also allowing the web designer or the web developer to code all these information.
I can imagine.
So it's like you're installing an exhibition, but instead of installing an exhibition in a physical space, you're installing the exhibition on a
web space. Yeah.
So the web coder is the guy who's come with a nail.
And can you give us some examples of some of the artists that you're featuring on Nation 2.0 currently?
Yeah. So this is Marco Bernardi. He's an Italian artist based in Rome. He works with like between geopolitics and irony. So it was some kind of irony to see how Italy changed in terms of politics and culture very quickly. So he has these different editions of small Italies with different design, with different fabrics.
Nice.
And then we have Navid Azimi Sajjadi, who's an Iranian artist also, who's working with using a lot of iconography from his culture, and because he's Iranian, so using old in Persian Empire iconography, and also colonial iconography from Italy and from Turkey. So use like this kind of visuals in his work. And then we have Naji Kamouche. He's a French-Algerian artist based in France. His work is very diverse. It's very interesting. Of course, he's talking about here the using the carpet as an element in his work, like showing how the culture of carpet has been like influencing all the visual culture. Then she's Asma Belamhar. She's an Emirati artist also who's working with textile, and then using imagery of landscape of the UAE in her interactive installation, and physical sculpture, a moving sculpture that, for example, these two installations are basically moving while the video is transitioning between these modules, these architectural modules. He's very, very interesting. He also is Algerian French artist, Jamil Koken, sorry. So he has this project called Come Invest in Us, You Will Strike Gold, which is very interesting. Was exhibited in different major exhibition. And then you have, we have Paolo Monti is also an Italian artist who's very, very progressive project. He created an artwork project that is now on a satellite going around the world.
Wow.
Yeah, it's called 37788. It's the name of the
rocket.
The rocket, yes.
Yeah.
And will end in 2037. So this artwork basically is in that rocket since 2011, and ideally will be back on the will land again here in 2037.
And it will have gone around the world,
yeah,
and beyond.
Yeah, you can track it. There is a link here. If you go on the account, you can find the link. You can track the satellite. Usually it's like on top of UAE at 1 o'clock every day.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. That's awesome. So that's a different experience that you wouldn't, for example, be able to experience in an exhibition necessarily. It requires this virtual technology and advanced technology. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, and that's what we are working on with him, because we are somehow recreating that experience on a virtual space, and try to add as much as possible content and information from that rocket.
I'm excited. This is exciting, actually. This is a whole new world.
And then we have Isaac Sullivan, who is an artist, professor, educator, and also DJ. So he works in different spheres.
Okay.
And then we have also Sujin Lee. She's a Korean artist working with space and installations in public space. Most of the time she used the material and the fabric that are purchased from the neighboring area where she is commissioned to create a work, and she kind of create link with the community. So it's a very interactive project with the light installation, sometimes with the fabric and then other materials as well.
Super.
And then we have recently we showcased also Jeff Arcaldi. Jeff Arcaldi is very, I mean, is not really emerging. Is more like an established artist. He's a Palestinian artist that he's a painter. He's one of the best painter I ever met my life. So,
Wow.
and the type of work that we showcase here is very interesting. Talking about different subjects, somehow related to the Middle East.
Mm.
So the latest artist that we featured was Jumeiri. Jumeiri is an Emirati artist who works with performative art installations, with electronic art and light, and using light and installations for his performances, and he's used also irony in his work, so he's very ironic. And his recent exhibition was Speculative Landscapes at NYU Abu Dhabi.
Amazing.
And now, of course, we have on track at least six new artists, with the idea also of now asking key role peoples around the world to also nominate artists that are that deserve to be promoted. So that's where we are now with the nation, and the website will be launched in September.
Amazing. So there you have it, guys. If you are looking for a virtual or online experience and access to art, just head on to Instagram, and the handle is nation.2.0.
Yes. Every day there is a new post.
Fantastic. Tell me a little bit about the mission and like you know, some of your goals that you would like to achieve through Nation 2.0.
I think being, as I said before, being an artist and understanding the need of an artist plays like an important part in my role, because I understand what are the challenges, and then I think that there are many institutions, many organizations who support artists, but there are really much more artists, much more art practitioners around the world that don't have the chance to be seen and to show their work. And most of them have a solid body of work. So, but they are not either represented by a gallery, they are not promoted, or they don't know how to promote their work. I'm not a specialist in promoting artists, but I understand what do they need. So basically, the idea is to identify these talents and then give them a platform, give them a space to show their work. This is one part of the project. The other part is to develop this new form of media, of commissioning artists for the online platform. And this is of course is not, as I said before, is not a virtual tour experience, and at the same time is not to be labeled as a web art, but it's more like defining a new form of expression for artists. So it's basically giving the chance, giving the opportunity to emerging and mid-career artists to commission them and to allow them to come up with some new different ideas.
And we've discussed, you know, that this enables you to reach artists in like very remote areas. So is this enabling you to feature a different category of artists and different reach of artists?
Yes, the reason why I want to work with different people also who can nominate artists is that sometimes I don't know many artists from different parts of the world. So, for example, if I had to talk to, let's say, Pakistan, I'm not an expert in Pakistan. So I'd rather talk to an expert of Pakistan, someone who works in either academic or a curator or an institution, and ask them recommend one artist, or nominate one artist that that either like has lives in a remote area, or for example he doesn't have access to be visible. So these people basically help to identify these talents. And yeah, the plan is to identify them and to promote their work and eventually see how things evolve, because it's all about also understanding, connecting people. So once we connect, one of the mission also of Nation 2.0 is to create a collective of people who are, of course, like-minded and understand each other, and are not necessarily only artists, but also people who work in the art world, or people who are teaching at the university. So creating this link is very important, because the link eventually can develop into an opportunity.
Yeah, it adds definitely the importance of the community and people networking and getting together adds more space for collaboration and evolution. It speeds up the evolution of it.
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you. Like some tips that we can get from you, because we can use your experience and knowledge. So for anybody out there that's listening that wants some tips, let's say, okay, so what do you think are going to be the biggest changes that we can anticipate post-corona? What should we expect in the art world?
I think I have like I have a feeling that we are gonna go back more or less on how we used to work before, but with some small change. I think the change are that we will be more open to connect. We'll be more open to share and to collaborate. And something, I think something that will definitely will continue to exist is to have these like frequent connection with people, and to have like frequent dialogue. I mean, the technology was there before, but we were not using at the right time. We were using just as a last option.
Resort,
now, as a last resort. Now, the fact that we were forced to stay home, we realized that we have this gold in our hands, and we decided to use it to the full potential. So I think we will continue to connect more and to exchange more ideas and to be more connected also with the artists. So I think artists will work more in collaboration. There will be more dialogues and exchanging ideas, and there will be more influencing each other. So
from different cultures, hopefully, as well, from halfway across the world, which before it was, I think people were a lot more localized in collaborating with people within their local communities. So that's hopefully going to change. So how can the community best support artists?
Artists needs to have they are labeled as artists, as like someone who produce a visual project or a visual artwork. But artist is much more than that. In many cases, artists are considered thinkers. So I think it depends who you are. If you're talking about you as a Noor, or you as a institution or a company, I think we should look at artists as thinkers and think of how they can contribute and to our project, or to our ideas, or to our initiatives. So I think artists should be called on. I mean, should be considered not only for art projects, but also for innovation.
Being a part of the thinking process and design process and development process.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, that's a very good point.
I'm not saying that all the artists are good at that, but there are some artists, like let's say a good amount of artists that are good thinkers. The amount of information, the amount of data that they collect in order to deliver their work is huge. So the amount of information that they have. I work as a curator also, as the artistic director. So I know that behind an artwork there is a lot of research. There is a lot of information. So this is like it's considered like a wealth of data, right? So
absolutely.
And don't forget how, for example, recently artists were commissioned by Hermes or Louis Vuitton, street artists or designers. So that kind of collabs are very important. I mean, and one example you can see at Seoul DXB, for example. When you go to Seoul DXB, you can see a lot of these phenomena, right? And every year is evolving and getting better and better. So
definitely. And the experience gets better and better for the consumers.
Yeah.
Okay, so and then next tip, if you had to give advice for the new, talents, new artists that are just starting their journey and emerging, what is one sound piece of advice that you would say or offer?
I wrote a list, which is just to be like straightforward.
Go, we're ready.
Okay. First of all, you don't need to rush.
Okay.
Don't be like impatient to be there, to be out and about with an exhibition. I would say that like research is very important, and understand who you are as an identity, who you want to be, and what you want to communicate. Like these are the core of being an artist. So I think like the introspective part is very important, to understand who you are, who you want to be, and then the message. Now, behind that, there is a lot of research. You need to really research a lot, and I would say also travel. I would say like meet people, and then during this process, you can start to produce. You can start to to test something, like participate in a project or doing some residency or these kind of things. But I would say like not push too hard to be in exhibitions and to be featured in a book or something like that. So
that's more inwards and into developing who you are, rather than trying to showcase difference.
Yes. Yeah, because that will reflect a lot on a final result, right? So
interesting. I was talking to on this point. We interviewed previously as well. A brand. She's like a marketing specialist and does a lot of work for brands and creates content, basically online content. And one of the things that she had mentioned is exactly that, is going through some self identification process with a life coach helped her to identify the identity of her company, which solidified and was the breakthrough moment for her to get success. Was not necessarily through just doing a lot of work, but through really creating a unique identity, and one that's so well engraved that it was easy, people could identify them.
I mean, I would say don't limit yourself with the typical stereotypes. So, for example, the stereotype of the artist, okay, I have to do a work, I have to be in a gallery, in a cool gallery space, and I have to sell my work for $50,000. I mean, you can eventually reach there, but it's good to start small and start with experimenting. Experiment a lot. This is very important, and innovate all the time. So when you experiment, you are understanding your visual vocabulary, right? So as an artist, so you create a project, and then eventually you succeed. Now, when you succeed, that's not the end. You have to keep going. So when you create your own formula, let's say, there are artists, for example, that they manage to work with certain formula. They always replicate that formula. There is artists who use, for example, certain type of brush, a certain type of elements in their photos, for example. They are very recognizable. So they work in series, right? Which become very successful, for example. But then at some point, when you reach the plateau, you have to innovate. So you have to innovate. So you have to either evolve that part of your body of work, or change, or like have some sort of metamorphosis. I don't know, but you have to innovate. You have to keep innovating. Otherwise, you reach that
plateau. Yeah.
So that's another part. Another thing I will keep say that look, watch other people, ask questions, experience, travel a lot, look, research, evaluate, use a lot your brain with like understanding, and ask always why. there are these are always the question. Asking why, it helps you to also define
A lot of deeper thinking.
Yeah,
a lot of
I mean,
depth.
constantly, yes.
And presence. It sounds
Yeah.
like you have to be really present and involved in conscious.
We talk about the perspective part now. When the artists, like, let's say, somehow emerge and start to become like more, let's say, established, I think it's important to have like a continuous production. Like some artists, for example, produce some artists produce the same amount of work in 2 years. It depends. They have their own routine. So I think it's good to define that routine and work on it always. Work on that routine and then try to always to have everything on schedule. For example, having an exhibition every 2 years, for example, in a solo show, and twice a year an exhibition in a museum, and have your sales, for example, set. This is not really my expertise, but I would say that once you have your set
routine,
like routine,
calendar,
especially when it comes to cost, for example, how much you will price your work, for example. Once you define that cost, you can work on, for example, say, okay, we do unique pieces, or you do limited editions, for example. That will help also to achieve a certain target.
Absolutely. That's good. That's good advice. Where do you think the best avenues are for new artists to showcase their work? Like, social media is very powerful.
Yes.
But can you, is this the only avenue, or what would you advise them to do?
Well, it depends. If you're talking about local community, there are certain way, or if you're talking about global community, there is not
going to be online
more than the digital platforms.
Yeah.
And nowadays, when we say digital platforms, is too wide. So I would say that when we want to promote globally, we have to use different platforms that goes on social media or digital space. So I would say, for example, Instagram or a website. A website also, many people consider it like obsolete, but I still believe that like a good website is always important to have. In terms of outreach, we can't deny that Instagram became like the main platform to outreach artists or to interact. So on a global level, if you're talking about local and regional, in the UAE and the region, I think we are lucky here. The artists are very lucky because there are many initiatives and institutions and organizations that promote artists on different level. I'm not saying that everything is good, but it's there is a support for that. I think there is a good
so
support.
Register on and find these different
yeah, well, there is, if we want to name one, for example, Tashkil in Dubai is amazing. They are doing a great job. They also create a database of artists on their website, and they promote their work in different forms. Then in Sharjah, I think on different scale, of course, there is the Sharjah Art Foundation, and with their like full program of activities, they have a lot of opportunities. And then also in Abu Dhabi, I think through the initiatives by the Department of Culture and Tourism and the Sheikh Salama Foundation also. Sheikh Salama Foundation have a very good fellowship program. And in Dubai, again, Jamil Art Foundation at Art Center, they have also a program with grants, with funds for emerging artists. Now, recently they announced something for a micro fund for emerging artists. So there are a lot of things, and it's very much diverse than before.
Awesome.
More also articulated from different levels, from a big production of $100,000 to micro funds like the one that they recently announced for $1,000. So that means that they target also different range of artists. They target the established, they target the emerging, the mid-career, and then the very little emerging artists or in the
Honestly,
Thank
like
you.
it was such a pleasure to get into the head of Giuseppe for an hour and just to learn so much. I feel like we could actually talk for days. So I'm really excited to follow up on Nation 2.0 and to discover, you know, these new mediums, and we definitely have to stay in touch.
Sure, definitely.
All right, take care.
Looking forward.
Thank you. Ciao.
Thank you. Bye.
DXB. This ultraviolet color that exists but can't be seen. It is the united hope of the future. This is ultraviolet. Let's celebrate unity and connection. This is Ultraviolet DXB. Violet is the invisible fringe of the rainbow, a color that exists but can't be seen. It is the united hope of the future. Let's celebrate unity and connection. Ultraviolet DXB. This is ultraviolet. Ultraviolet is the invisible fringe of the rainbow, a color that exists but can't be seen. It is the united hope of the future. Let's celebrate unity and connection. This is Ultraviolet DXB.
And I'm going to start. Mechanics, which is an all-natural, gender-fluid, clean beauty line for your full body. And this is a masterclass on teaching you a little bit about how to start a business, how to build a brand, a little bit of my backstory on why I started my brand and how I've gotten to this point with it. And at the end of the class, I'm going to do a really quick a really quick recipe with you on how you can actually make something at home. So this is my first masterclass. So I'm excited to be here and share some of my knowledge with you. After this masterclass, if there's ever a point in which you might have a question directly related to me, please feel free to email me. My email address is noto@notobotanics.com. I'm at home in California, and my dog is on the couch right there. So that's Mio. She might move around, but welcome to my home. So, like I said, I'm the founder of Noto Botanics, and I started my company about, I think it's coming up on almost 5 years. It's about 4.5 years now. And originally, before that, I had started out as a makeup artist, and I've been doing makeup for many, many years before I considered starting my line. And during this phase in my life, this particular phase in my life, I was kind of questioning what work I was putting out into the world, what my mark was on the world, if I was helping the world at all, and kind of, you know, what was I giving back? I wasn't feeling totally connected to the makeup work that I was doing. So it led me into considering what some of my other options could be. Around this time as well, so there was like this mental space happening, and then around this time as well, I started to work with clients, specifically my celebrity clients, that were starting to demand me to use clean beauty on them. This was a relatively new mainstream idea. There weren't very many brands in the mainstream market that I was familiar with, and the ones that I did find, I wasn't necessarily loving, especially when it came to like the actual makeup of things. I wasn't necessarily loving them. I didn't feel like they were inclusive, whether or not that was in the range, the color range, the options that you had in that, or whether that was, you know, even in the identity of the brands. So around this time as well, I was also putting it on myself to really clean up my diet, to learn about, you know, what is organic food, or what is sustainability, or what does, you know, what are parabens, or what are toxic ingredients, whether that was in food or whether that was in makeup. These were questions that were really starting to become bigger picture things in my mind. So I cleaned up my diet. I cleaned up all of that. I started reading up on things. I started reading up on herbalism, even aromatherapy, started mixing up my own concoctions. I also had really out my own health and my own well-being. So those two worlds kind of collided, and that's when I started, like I said, to mix my own things out of not only personal necessity, but also work-related necessity based off of what my clients' needs were. So as I started to dive into looking at other brands, to bring it back to the point I just made, I wasn't seeing anything that I felt connected to, that I felt resonated with me. The more and more I got involved into the wellness space, I had friends that were like superstars in the wellness world, you know, getting invited to events or going, you know, to different things that evolved into that space. I was feeling more and more disassociated with that as well, and just definitely didn't feel connected in that space. It felt very cisgender, very privileged, and I wasn't connecting in that. And then when I took it another step farther to look at it, I also wasn't seeing representation within the BIPOC community either. So putting everything together, me questioning what I was putting out into the world, me really changing up everything into my internal world, health-wise, spiritually, and then my clients also kind of shining light on a need that I started to see represented as a need in mainstream culture. Everything kind of and try something totally different. However, I then kind of put it all together and realized, you know what, maybe the world doesn't need a brand new cosmetic line, but the world might need a new way of looking at beauty and might need a new way of looking at the wellness space. And hence I started to develop what I wanted to put out into the world with that. I wanted to create something that was multi-use, representative of all people, whether that was or the combination, kind of, you know, create a new culture within the wellness space, because I really wasn't seeing anything like that. On top of it, I wasn't seeing a design that I liked either. I wanted something clean and sleek. I had personal interests in the 90s, like Helmut Lang or CK1. I remember as a kid seeing the CK1 ads, like I'm sure many of us, changed my life in a big way, because I hadn't seen anything like that. I didn't see anything that was gender fluid. That's also a really big point on what I do with my brand. Everything is gender fluid. So my point in telling you all these details is to kind of help you understand that my brand comes from a place of personal need, personal interest, deep inspirations, and then also a need that I kind of believe to see that was outside of me, something else that people maybe that they weren't getting. Because I felt, you know, if I felt that there was a gap in this, I imagine other people do too. And then I also knew that because a lot of my friends that were queer, or that are people of color, felt that there were misrepresentations or underrepresentations within their community, and they didn't feel able to connect either. So the point in that is saying, you know, leading into, well, what makes a good brand? I think making a good brand is an authentic story, is something that the founder truly believes in and isn't just trying to follow a trend or trying to follow the leader, you know, or trying to just kind of play along. They see a hole missing, they'll just fill it because they think they can bank off of it. I think we've moved out of that space. I think we are moving out of that space even farther every day, where not only also the customer, the consumer wants to be connected to the brands that they are putting their money towards. Because I believe that every time you put your money towards something, every time you purchase something, you're making a vote toward what you think counts. And I think that people are starting to really feel that way as well. So creating a brand that has authenticity and transparency within that space, I think is becoming absolutely mandatory. You know, especially based off of everything that we've been seeing over the last few weeks, brands are getting called out left and right for not being authentic. And, you know, the last thing that somebody wants is to be on that list of being called out. So therefore, be real with it, be honest with it, and have integrity with what you're doing. So that's kind of what I think makes a good brand. That's where I would start. If you're looking to start a brand, think about, if you're not sure what you should do yet, think about what you care about. Think about what matters to you. Think about what you believe in or what you feel is missing because you need it, or someone that's close to you needs it. There's something that you're passionate about. Sharing with the world is not being told. First of all, you'll have a lot more fun as a business owner doing something like that. And secondly, others will connect deeply to that as well, because we're not alone in this world. I think though we may feel that we're individual, we all have different needs, but at the same time, the same needs. just in different ways. And each of us likes our story to be told within those needs in maybe different ways, and that's who your audience is. So first things first, I think that's what makes a good brand. Start out there. And then as you build your brand, you know, understand what makes a brand of integrity. So I can only speak for myself and how I try to run my company and where I'm going with my company. We're about 4.5 years old. Like I said, it's a small team of 6, including myself, full-time employees, and a handful of independent contractors. And to me, that feels really magical that I can even say I have that many employees and that many, you know, people working with us, because just a couple of years ago, it was just me, one other person, and another person helping make product. And I think for me, what shifted was when I was able to put all of my attention on my company. Not all of us are privileged to be able to come up with an idea and raise money and or have money already to start your own line or your own brand or whatever, and then just go straight into that. A lot of us have to spend, in my case, I think I started out with maybe like two jobs. You might have to have 2 full-time jobs, which is your dream and your job, until you can get to the point in which you have the ability to then choose your dream over your job. And that's okay. It just means just a little bit of extra hard work, but you have to remember that the goal in mind is to then get to a point where you can focus solely on your dream, because it does need that attention. You know, that saying, what you put your attention to grows. And if you're unable to give your all to your dream, then you might miss through the cracks. As soon as I switched over to just, I had the option to like switch, you know, sales were up to the point where I could supplement some of my income and keep production and, you know, have my employee. Everything changed for me. We started, it was almost like energetically things changed. It was almost as if it was like the next day that things started to come in a different way. And I was able to really flesh out and you know, organize my thoughts and put them into action, and not just, you know, bring my computer on set and answer all the emails as quick as I could on my lunch breaks or what have you. So I do think it's important to really focus on the fact that if you might not have privilege to 100% focus on your goal, you're still going to have to, and you're going to have to figure it out. It just might mean you have to be a little bit tired and you might have to work a little bit longer. Some of the things that I invested in first were, you know, obviously like imagery, making a good product, the branding, the message. I really wanted the message to be very clear, and, you know, kind of coming up with my mission statement, because if you, and this could be a mission statement that you keep to yourself only and nobody knows about it, but you will have to use that as a guideline for what you want to do with your company. And it's probably pretty important for you to understand what that message is at the very beginning, so you can always come back to it, check yourself, see if you're still on path with that goal, or if that goal needs to be, if that mission needs to be renegotiated because maybe you've changed or whatever. So definitely start out with, you know, kind of a mission, a personal mission with that as well. Another thing that was really important for me to start my line was coming up with, you know, suppliers that were ethical, that that gave good practices, that gave sustainability, because minimum orders are for supplies and ingredients are really high if you want to, you know, have something of purest and best quality but not, you know, break the bank. That's something that's really wrong with our systems. We definitely need to work on that, where it's kind of like a mandatory thing to be able to offer sustainable ingredients, packaging, all these sorts of things. But if you can get to a point where that's what you're focusing on, even if you can just start out with recycled boxes that have been made of recycled material, or you know, glass if you can, or that sort of thing. So those have always been kind of important steps within my path. It's like, what can I include to have the least impact on the planet? And then, you know, leading into, well, what, you know, what are the goals? Where can I go with this? How much do I need to spend in order to get the thing that I need the most? You don't have to be perfect at first, but you definitely want to always try to move towards that. I like to think like minimal shifts make great change. As long as you're continuously making minimal shifts towards the bigger picture, don't be too hard on yourself if you can't do it all at the beginning. I like to kind of think of that would be an important thing for me to focus on. And then the next thing for me would have been, well, okay, who are our models? Like who's representing the brand? That's also very important, because you want that to be coming from a very authentic place as well. You never want to be tokenizing. You never want to be trying to greenwash or trying to, you know, get into a point where it's not authentic to the brand. So you really want to think about who and how and what you're putting in front of your brand, and if that is true to who you are as well. Or people that I admire, they've all been, you know, activists, or people doing charity work, or people with a bigger picture on how to like until you can give them a kickback. In my case, that's how it was and is. I think that it's really important to understand that you do need to invest in your team. You do need to give them encouragement, tools, you know, any structures. I think building structure is also really important, and systems, understanding what internal systems mean. These are really, you know, important things to think about. And if you do have the opportunity to hire a consultant that can help you kind of navigate these things, that might be wise. I have hired consultants in the past, and that's been super helpful for me as well. So, you know, whether that's somebody that's training an employee or even yourself on how to do operations, which is a huge part of a business, is understanding how much you're actually spending on making your products, so you know what your price margins should be and your cost of goods are, and, you know, understanding how to buy important is like, what's your message? What materials are you choosing to use? Who are you hiring, and how are you training your team, and who are you delegating to? And what's the brand imagery? What does that look like? What's the story that you're trying to tell? You know, for me, it's a combination of talking about people and talking and being able to tell the story of, you know, my brand is heavily based on botanics. So telling the story of herbs and oils and what, you know, what they do for you, that's really special. So make sure you read up and learn on what it is that you're putting out there and educate yourself too. Bit of a breakdown on what I've started to do, and now I'm moving into this next phase in my business where I've kind of fine-tuned most of those things, or I'm working towards fine-tuning them even more so. But I'm moving into that, you know, second or third phase of my business where we're now looking at what it means to scale. How can we scale? And, you know, I opened a storefront a few months ago. Ironic timing. However, you know, thinking about what that next step is for your brand and what is your 5-year term or goals, you know, and kind of working backwards to the point at which you can then begin to move towards that. Yeah, bigger picture is always nice to think about, but don't get overwhelmed with it. It's definitely something you work towards and you learn a lot along the way. So I wanted to kind of also lead into, on another creative side, on the flip side, talk about some ingredients and talk about products and how I start to formulate things. I'm not a formulator by expertise. Like I said, I'm a makeup artist that is passionate about ingredients, that's passionate about nature's oils and herbs and what it can do for you out of personal experience working with them, whether that's internally or externally. So, you know, I learned about all of the formulas that I did by personal experimentation. So every product that I made, I have come up with the premise of what I wanted to achieve with it. And one way of doing that is, you know, if you're coming at it with a little bit more of a place like me where I'm self-taught, I think for me, what was the need? First of all, what's the need I have? Okay, so my skin is breaking out and it's kind of oily, but it's kind of dry, so it needs to be balanced somehow, and I want it to feel brighter. That's what I thought of when I made my Deep Serum, which is one of my first products that I launched. It's our face serum, face and neck serum. So I started to research, you know, what kind of essential oils and ingredients and carrier oils are great for doing these things. And I came to the conclusion of my formula by trial and error and, you know, picking the different things, putting them all together, doing test batches, seeing what works, spending a lot of time testing these things and sharing them with friends and models and people in my circle that would be willing to be guinea pigs for me, basically. And seeing how it worked with other people and seeing what other people thought about it and if they had any feedback from me. So that's also something really important, is like testing your product out before you decide to put it out there for others. You want to make sure it's safe for other people and how they're reacting to it. Not only just how you're reacting to it. You want to always make sure that you have a lot of representation, whether that's like if you're putting out a color or if it's like a certain type of ingredient. How does it work for different skin tones and different people that have different needs? And also, you know, how does it work for you? What do you think about it? What are you loving about it or not loving about it? So that's, you know, doing the research in that way is really, really important. And like I said, thinking about what the outcome of the product is that you want to achieve, and then going and seeking information on what kind of ingredients will do that, and then mixing your own thing. There's 1,000,001 different formulas that somebody could create, but what you decide to put into it is special to you. So have fun with it and experiment with it. I think it's really a time to kind of just like let your natural senses, your intuition lead you. I definitely did that when I first made my rooted oil, which is an oil that has a lot of different tree oils, a lot of different earthy scents, and a little bit of flower, a little bit of, you know, it's very grounding. And I just remember seeking out as many oils that would give a smoky scent or a lighter scent, or, you know, just the different things, and then putting it to my nose and comparing, like, oh, this oil next to this oil, what would it smell like if they were together? And like intuition, you know, just letting it lead the way. And I came up with one of my favorite products that's so unique and so special. So let your intuition guide you, and let your playfulness guide you in that as well. I do suggest early on taking, if you're going to mix product, if you're watching this because you're interested in creating a skincare line and you're just sort of testing it out on your own, take really detailed notes. Try to get a scale, a measuring scale, maybe weigh things out in grams, you know, that sort of thing. Because I learned the hard way that you can't just say, so yeah, have fun with it. Think about what kind of packaging you want. Research things, order samples, find suppliers and see if you can get samples sent to you so you can, you know, test out the quality. And a lot of different oils smell different. You know, one vetiver might smell different from another vetiver based off of your supplier. So definitely, you know, you might want to spend a little bit of money investing in the R&D of it all, the research and development of it all. That's kind of the fun part, though, out of, you know, all of it. It's like creating your experiments, your little potions, I think. That's really special. So, you know, there's a list when it comes to suppliers for ingredients. There's many suppliers out there, and they can range from extremely expensive to very cheap. If you know, back to the conversation of if you're trying to create a skincare line or a product line, be considerate of who your suppliers are, because the last thing you want to do is create a eco-conscious or brand that's about celebrating the earth and then strip the earth of its nutrients by like working with suppliers that are maybe hurting the environment or working their employees in, you know, a racist way, not taking care of their employees, exploiting their employees. You want to really think about that. You know, if you're using mica, you may or may not know that a lot of mica is mined by children and is slave labor and child labor. So you may want to consider finding a supplier that does not practice that. So there's a lot to learn about the supply chain, you know, not just in a way of like, oh, I can recycle these bottles, or, oh, this box will biodegrade. It goes way beyond that. You know, how are the employees treated? How are the crops treated? Are they cutting, you know, like we use a Palo Santo in one of our oils, and it's an endangered oil. However, ours is made from Palo Santo branches that have fallen off the tree, and it's never made from new crop. So you might want to consider, what does that look like? You know, getting a supplier that doesn't use new crop. So you want to do the research. You want to think about what matters to you, and that's part of the message. You know, if you're creating a brand that's saying it cares about certain things, but then on the flip side, it's filled with the sweat off of the backs of people that are making it, or the earth, it's kind of contradicting. So, so yeah, you might want to consider what that looks like too. And you could also consider looking at local farmers if there's ingredients that you think that you can find locally, if you're able to support your community in that way, that's probably the most ideal way. However, I do understand that a lot of ingredients are globally sourced. There's certain things that you can't find other than in certain areas. But consider that could also things right out of your own kitchen. You know, obviously coconut oil is a thing. You maybe avoid it for the face, but it's great for the body. You might be able to walk in your neighborhood and realize, oh, there's a bunch of rosemary plants. Here in California, like when I walk up my street, your oils with, or distill in a pot and like let the steam come up and collect the steam. There's so many different ways that you can create your needs with what you actually already have. As a kid, my mom would use olive oil all over her body. I'm Sicilian, my parents are from Sicily, so as a kid I remember my mom doing the weirdest things because, you know, she was from another country and I was the American daughter. She would rub olive oil all over her, and I thought that was so gross because olive oil is for eating, right? However, as an adult, I definitely partake in that, and olive oil is actually so incredible for the body, so like nutrient dense, so hydrating, really clean. So, you know, something like that you could use. Sesame seed oil is actually really, really great for the skin as well. So you definitely can do a lot of research to see what's already available at your own home, and you can mix and test batches out that way too. Or if you're in a bind, you can, you know, and your skin's dry, you might find like the next best recipe right in your kitchen. So that kind of leads me into just trying to backtrack and think, you know, we kind of touched base on how you could start your business, where you can start from. It's also really, you know, great pointer to think about if there's anyone that you know that's done it before, that you respect, or even if they've done something differently, but you respect them and somehow aligned. It's not a bad idea to always seek out a mentor or somebody that can give you some advice based off of whatever type of experience in life that they've had. It can be difficult to find that person, but never, you know, never give up hope on finding them. Just keep your eyes open for them, or just straight up ask around. That for me has been really helpful. It's taken me a while to find someone. I've recently found that person, and it's more business related. However, it's been so helpful for me to understand how to grow as a leader. You have to remember the fact that you are a leader, and you know, if you own your own business and if you plan on having employees, you're their leader. You're their, you know, the way you run your company is going to be a reflection on how they should run your company as well. So, you know, you want to consider maybe evolving yourself in that way too, and what that means and what type of leader you want to be as well. So those are some tips on like growing a business based off. Those are tips based off of my experience on growing a business, and some things that have been really important for me and I've learned along the way. I hope that's helpful for you. And, you know, like I said, if you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to me. I'm happy to answer them to the best of my knowledge, and yeah, help you figure it out too. So on the flip side, I thought it would be fun as we kind of wind out of this conversation to maybe show you a really quick recipe. Really simple. They're really easy to find. You can find a local herbalist, you can find a local herb store, or you can find a website that maybe is a supplier that is just, you know, small batch. Living Libations is a really good supplier. They make everything, I believe, from their own farm in Canada. Also, Mountain Rose Herbs is a really great company as well. Definitely great to start there. There's so many more, but those are two of my top ones that are at the top of my mind. So what I'm gonna do today is I'm going to make, it's been quarantine, it's been like a change of season from spring to summer. Personally, my skin has changed a lot by being home all the time. How, I'm not sure. I thought maybe it'd get better, but for some reason it really hasn't. Maybe because I've been sitting outside all the time. So my skin's getting a little dry and a little softer feeling, which is fine. But however, what I want to do is I want to make a kind of like a roll-on skin tightener and brightener. So once again, think about what I'd like to happen. I want my skin to tighten. I want it to, something especially that I'd like to put around my eye area, maybe on my lip as a lip oil. I want it to depuff. I want it to moisturize, and I want to make sure that I'm giving my skin vitamins to replenish it from anything I might be losing from being outside too long or not drinking enough water or whatever that I'm doing these days. So I'm going to make, you can find these little roller bottles online really simply. You could probably find them on Etsy. It's just like what you'd put like an essential oil in. I'm going to use this so it's easy to apply and easy to carry if I ever leave the house and just want to take it with me. So generally speaking, when you do an essential oil with a carrier, or if you use a carrier oil with, you know, a more intense oil, you want to do pretty much the rule is like 1 drop of the so you'd never want to just like put on an essential oil just straight onto your skin, or any sort of like herb oil right onto the skin, because it might burn, it might be too intense. The oils I've picked today aren't ones that are going to be too intense. However, they are powerful. So the carrier oil that I love to use is jojoba oil. It's really light, it's really absorbent. It mimics your own skin's natural sebum production. So it almost, your skin thinks that it's coming from yourself. And the fact that it absorbs really quickly into the skin means that it's not going to clog the pores. Since I'm using it on my face, that's important for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I have about 5 teaspoons in here. I'm gonna do a few more. And basically what I'm doing is I'm making kind of like a larger batch that can then be used and put into another container if you'd like to save it for later to refill this. So I have about 10 teaspoons here. So what that means is I'm gonna add 10 drops of each of my oils. And the 2 oils that I'm gonna include are coffee bean oil, which that's going to achieve the depuffing, that's going to achieve the tightening, it's gonna awaken the skin. Similar to you think of drinking coffee, it's not going to necessarily add a bunch of caffeine into your system and it's going to keep you awake at night, but it's going to just kind of tighten the skin and pump it up a little bit. So I'm going to do 10 drops of that. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open this. And one great tool to use also is a dropper, a glass one, so it's easy to take in the product and clean it out. You can take the top off and then clean it up that way. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, You don't want to like be too strong with how you mix it. You don't want to crush the molecule. You want it to just slowly kind of melt into itself. It also smells really amazing if you like the smell of coffee, which I do. It smells like coffee. And then the next oil that we're going to use is pomegranate oil, which is actually has 3 times the amount of antioxidants than green tea and red wine, which is a lot. And it's really great for helping skin and cell renewal. It's one of the best oils I think that you can use on your skin. It's also really great at helping remove or lighten acne or scar spots. So I'm going to use that, and it has a dropper already built in it, and I'm going to put in 10 drops. Great. I like to smell everything that I mix. It has like a slight sweet smell to it, but smells pretty herbally. So one thing you want to consider when you're making your product is, for me anyway, I like to think, how does it smell? What is it doing to my senses? Because it's not only what it's doing to my skin, but it's also what is it doing to my senses that's important to me. I want it to be a full sensorial experience. I want everything in my body to kind of get something out of it. So you may want to research what are some of your favorite scents in oils, and then see what their benefits are. It could be, the fact that you lead that way versus, what do you want the benefits to be, then find them. Maybe it's what do you want it to smell like, and then see what the benefits are. All right, so I love these because you can easily pour. And then at the top, there you go. Homemade, easy to use, great for depuffing, great for applying, really great on the lips, actually. And you made it yourself. I'd be really curious to see what concoctions you come up with, and if you have any suggestions or ideas or things that you're proud of that you made because of this. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. And yeah, it can be as simple as into moving into having a full company. That's how I started it, truly. It was just out of personal experimentation leading into, okay, I actually think I want to do this on a bigger scale. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this was informative and fun for you. I hope that you're able to take away something and hopefully use it towards whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. I'd love to hear feedback, and I'd love to hear your stories. So please feel free to contact me. Once again, my email is noto@notobotanics. I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you so much. Stop recording.
This is Ultraviolet DXB. Violet is the invisible fringe of the rainbow, a color that exists but can't be seen. It is the united hope of the future. Let's celebrate unity and connection. Ultraviolet DXB. exists but can't be seen. It is the united hope of the future. Let's celebrate unity and connection. This is ULTRAVIOLET, DXB. This is ULTRAVIOLET. Let's celebrate unity and connection. This is ULTRAVIOLET, DXB. Violet is the invisible fringe of the rainbow, a color that exists but can't be seen. It is the united hope of the future. Let's celebrate unity and connection. ULTRAVIOLET, DXB. This is ULTRAVIOLET. Ultraviolet is the invisible fringe of the rainbow, a color that exists but can't be seen. It is the united hope of the future. Let's celebrate unity and connection. This is ULTRAVIOLET, DXB. This is ULTRAVIOLET. Let's celebrate unity and connection. This is ULTRAVIOLET, DXB. Violet is the invisible fringe of the rainbow, a color that exists but can't be seen. It is the united hope of the future. Let's celebrate unity and connection. ULTRAVIOLET, DXB. Ultraviolet is the invisible fringe of the rainbow, a color that exists but can't be seen. It is the united hope of the future. Let's celebrate unity and connection. This is Ultraviolet DXB. This is Ultraviolet. This is Ultraviolet DXB. Is the invisible fringe of the rainbow, a color that exists but can't be seen. It is the united hope of the future. Let's celebrate unity and connection. Ultraviolet DXB. This is Ultraviolet. Ultraviolet is the invisible fringe of the rainbow, a color that exists but can't be seen. It is the united hope of the future. Let's celebrate unity and connection. This is Ultraviolet DXB. This is Ultraviolet. Let's celebrate unity and connection. This is Ultraviolet DXB. Ultraviolet is the invisible fringe of the rainbow, a color that exists but can't be seen. It is the united hope of the future. Let's celebrate unity and connection. ULTRAVIOLET, DXB. This is ULTRAVIOLET. Ultraviolet is the invisible fringe of the rainbow, a color that exists but can't be seen. It is the united hope of the future. Let's celebrate unity and connection. This is ULTRAVIOLET, DXB. This is ULTRAVIOLET. Let's celebrate unity and connection. This is ULTRAVIOLET.